So again, this is my contact information. So if you wanted to connect after this meeting, you had other questions that we didn't get time to get to, I'm happy to answer any of those for you here. And that is my contact information. This presentation will also be available in the slideshow format on the website after. So when we're thinking about, I'm so sorry. Okay. When we're thinking about planning and the things that students need to do as they're preparing, I know tonight we have a lot of parents who have incoming freshmen. And so the most important thing that freshman and sophomore year is really keeping those grades up. So right now, especially the GPA is especially important. And I'll talk a little bit about testing and how that's changing. So the SAT or the ACT. But if students are preparing for college at any level, whether it's a community college or a four-year college, I think they need to be prepared and understand what it takes to get those higher level grades. Specifically here, I'm talking about the four-year colleges or universities and those type of entrance requirements. And so for those, so four-year colleges, really C's or higher. And I tell my students, you really want to have a 3.0 or higher. And then from there, it will depend on your goals, and we'll go over some of that. You also want to enroll in challenging, rigorous courses from the A through G list. So from those college approved list courses, students want to select as many as they can and what they can handle. So to not be overwhelmed, to find a balance, but to take things, you know, if you're kind of not sure if it's going to be too much or not enough, take as much as you can without overwhelming yourself. And then they can always talk to a counselor or consult with me as well if they feel like that workload is going to be maybe a little bit too much for them. And so that's what myself as the college counselor and their caseload counselors, therefore, we can help them kind of figure that out. In the fall, we do offer the PSAT, so the practice SAT. So if students are considering taking that, and I will talk more about testing requirements that have changed, but if they're considering that, that would be an opportunity for them. And then trying out getting involved in something they care about. So now is the time they can kind of figure out, hey, what do I like doing? What am I good at? What are the things that I want to do that I can showcase to a college to say, hey, these are my interests, and this is my plan based on what those interests are. The other thing is we do have a tool called Naviance that I show students, and it will be in some of their classrooms that we show them that information. And also it's something they can use on their own. It's in the student apps once they get over to Bayer, and that's a really nice tool that they can start kind of creating college lists, figuring out what type of colleges offer which type of majors and things like that. So for moving on, so 11th and 12th grade, that's when things get kind of more serious as far as thinking about college. So now I feel like we have more and more students that are really thinking, what is this going to mean? What do I want to take? What's going to be important for me? And a lot of it's going to be the same thing. So keeping those grades up. 3.0 or higher, again, it's going to depend on the college and how competitive it is. But for a four-year, so directly to a four-year, you're really going to want to try to aim for a 3.0 or higher. Those challenging classes, the more they can take in the A through G list, which we will look at, the better. Math, all 4 years. So I have a lot of students that, hey, I met that minimum requirement. I don't want to continue in math. I highly recommend to continue in math so they're college ready. And at this point, by now, they have hopefully established the clubs and sports and community service activities they enjoy. So now stepping up, taking those leadership roles and doing a little bit more within those activities they're involved in. And then creating a resume. So students want to start keeping track of all these things. So by the time they get to the place that they're applying to college or applying for jobs or applying for asking for letters of recommendation, they have all of this, they have that list going. So they want to start creating that list. Again, they could take the PSAT. The fall of junior year would be the last time they would practice, because after that, they're going to take the actual SAT if that is their plan. The SAT and ACT, we recommend they start taking it in the spring of junior year or fall of senior year. The deadline would be senior year by December. And that's going to depend if they want to take it based on the changes, which is up here on another slide. And then continuing to research what, getting more solid about what that college list is going to look like, how many colleges they want to apply to, what they want to study, and how to figure out, hey, which school has a program that I'm interested in, and how competitive is it? Am I kind of a good fit? And figuring out their target schools, and what's gonna work best for them and their goals and their plans. Again, that's a very kind of rough outline. Same thing senior year. I have a lot of anxiety. A lot of our students have anxiety about what senior year is going to look like for college planning. And I will say the more proactive approach that they take, the better things are going to go. It's going to be less stress and a smoother process for them. So that kind of gives you that breakdown month by month of the focus. And all of this, I go back and I work with students, and I have workshops, and I go back into the classrooms. And so they'll get help along the way through this entire process if they want the help. So for me as the college counselor, there's only one college counselor at the entire high school. So sometimes students have to reach out. I go in, I do classroom presentations at different times. But if they really want that additional help or a parent meeting or a one-on-one, they would need to reach out and schedule that appointment and talk about their plan. So when we consider the options for the four-year universities, the first one I'm listing here is the UC, and this is one of our more popular options for many of our students. And you can see the campuses there. San Francisco is not one that they can apply to as an undergrad student, but that's listed there. And they really are becoming more and more competitive. So looking at a 3.0 at least to be able to apply, but most are far over a 3.0. And taking the higher level classes so that they maybe even have that weighted GPA of a 4.2, 4.3, depending on the campus and depending on how competitive that campus is. And then also considering the major. So if you're looking at a engineering program at a school that's completely impacted or really challenging, then that's going to be even more rigorous standards than, say, an English major, depending on the school, of course. So at least a 3.0 holistic review process, meaning they look at the whole student, and now they no longer require the SAT or the ACT. So they are a test blind college system. They will not consider any of those test scores. So students that want to submit scores, unfortunately, they won't be looked at for admissions purposes for the UC. So it's one application, and then they would apply to as many campuses as they want within that application. Senior year, August 1st it opens, and then November 30th is the deadline for the UCs. For the CSUs, similar as far as one application, and then all of the campuses, they would decide where they want to apply. As far as how competitive they are, they vary greatly. And they talk more about impaction. So this system uses the term called impaction, which means more students are applying to a program or a campus than they have space for. And so then they start looking at students that are in their local area. They're going to look more highly at those students, plus those other factors that they're looking at. So GPA, I tell students aim for 3.0. Right now, they do accept 2.5, meeting the A through G courses. And the CSUs really focus more on that, the GPA, and some other factors depending on the campus, where the UC requires the essays and is collecting all that information about activities and involvement. So the CSUs have a little bit of a different standards and different things they look at as far as the applicants and for admissions. And so as an example, Stan State, they're not an impacted campus, so they have a lot more space. So they're going to be able to accept far more students than a campus like San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly, which is extremely impacted. And so then that's why you see those GPAs for average accepted students go way up. Their percentage of accepted students, it gets more and more a smaller number that they can accept for that acceptance rate. And so that's going to depend on the school and the major. So that's where I tell students you really have to do your research to see what your plans are. And then when we talk about private and out-of-state colleges, there's hundreds and thousands, or even international schools, and they're all going to have different requirements, different ways that they have students apply. But to really simplify and think about it in simple terms, really kind of considering meeting A through G requirements, high GPA, but many of them do want letters of recommendation, and often there are admissions essays, personal statements, and those kinds of things are required as well. And I listed just some of the tools that are out there right now that are web-based to apply to those campuses. So we kind of touched on the types of four-year college opportunities there are. And then here is the community colleges. So there's 113 campuses in California. Very popular for many of our students from Bayer. Right now, I would say more than ever, because they are offering that free tuition. So we don't know how long that's going to last, but for this year's class and hopefully next year's class, it's only been a couple years they've offered it so far, but hopefully it will last a while longer. That's going to offer the free tuition as long as students attend full time, they complete a FAFSA, and they get C's or better in their classes. They can get that for up to 2 years. So for many students, that's the 60 units. They're able to complete that in that time frame. And so they weren't paying tuition at that point. They may qualify for additional financial aid, but they will definitely get the tuition covered. And then they're able to transfer to that CSU or UC or private college they're interested to transfer to earn their bachelor's degree. So again, that becomes a little bit more popular for students. The other benefit of a community college would be their career tech program. So like MJC has a great automotive tech program where they get that certification, but they don't need a 4-year degree. And right now I feel like that's kind of a little bit of a push with the CTE programs or things that are very specialized. And I have a lot of students that maybe don't want to be in school for a really long time, or they're concerned about debt. So they want to get that certification so they can start working, and then maybe they'll change their mind down the road. So that is another opportunity for our students, along with, for MJC, dual enrollment. So we do offer free MJC courses for our current high school students. So I would say a student who's really managing their high school workload very well, they're earning all A's and B's, and they want to take an additional class, that is an option for them, and that would be completely free. And so those units would either go directly to MJC if they went there, or they would transfer to the 4-year college that they were applying to, most likely. So you'd want to look into that before taking the classes. And then if they didn't want to take it during the year, they can definitely take them over summer, and those are free as well. So we have a career navigator. Her name is Marcela Covarrubias, and she helps students with that whole entire process, from applying to filling out the forms, to answering any questions that students have about dual enrollment. And here's kind of a glimpse of other opportunities with out-of-state or private colleges. So the Western Undergraduate Exchange, better known as WUI, that's something I feel like often students don't realize is an opportunity. If they wanted to study on a school at a college that's a part of that, they can get, they don't have to pay out-of-state tuition, or they can even get additional scholarships. So not only not paying out-of-state tuition, but additional funding is often available. A lot of it is merit-based, so students that do really well or perform really well academically have better odds of getting those type of scholarships and financial benefits. When we talk about the application costs, so, and I touched on kind of SAT for the UCs. So SAT right now is $55 and ACT is $60. And they've changed some of the requirements of the test for this current group of students. So no more writing is required. There's no subject tests. And so this is the current fees for the test. Now, the CSUs have not said whether they're going to require the SATs or look at those, so whether they're going to be test blind like the UC. So they're going to be voting on that in March. So we'll know by March if that's going to kind of move forward or what that might look like. And as far as private and out-of-state colleges, it's all different. And so that's where you have to kind of do your homework and see what their requirement might be. And it may change, but overall, we are seeing many more colleges go test optional. So optional versus test blind. So test blind means they're not considering those test scores whatsoever, versus test optional means you can submit your score if you want, but if you don't want to, your application is still complete and they won't hold it against you if you don't submit a score. And so I get a lot around right now, like, so do I do it? So do I take it, or do I not take it? And so it's, it's up to the student. You have to decide if it's right for you. But one thing you can always do is take it, see how you do, hold on to those test scores, so don't send them to any colleges. And then if you feel like it's going to help your application, by all means, you can submit those scores. So really, unless you're scoring really well, doing really well, you're a great test taker, it will probably be beneficial. If you're not, it may be better to hold off. There also could be some areas where with placement testing or scholarships, there may be a reason to take the test, and maybe those test scores would come in handy at some point. By 2024, there are plenty of digital, shorter SAT tests. And so we'll see how that kind of rolls out and what that looks like. But at this time, that's all we know for sure. So constantly changes in college admissions. And if your student needs a fee waiver, they're welcome to see me, and I can see if they would qualify, and I have the code, so I could give them that if they would qualify. So as far as the CSUs and UCs, it's $70 per campus, and the fee waiver, they're going to ask you questions within the application to determine whether you qualify for a fee waiver. All right, I'm just talking so fast here. So thanks for listening. And again, thanks for being here and hanging with me. I know it's a ton of information, but I think it's nice for parents to have just kind of an overview and a sense of what they're considering moving forward. Excuse me there. And then the private and out-of-state colleges, it's going to vary by college as far as the cost of the application. There's some that will email students and say, hey, if you apply online right now, it's totally free. We're going to waive the cost of your application. And then there's others that are like $90 an application. And then the fee waiver process would vary as well. So you'd want to just kind of look into what those options are. And students can ask me, and they can come see me about that if they feel like they're unsure of how to navigate all of that. Okay, here's our A through G requirements. So you can kind of see it laid out of the number of years. So we have our graduation requirements, which many of them overlap with the A through G, but we separate the two so that students recognize, hey, you need to graduate, that's one thing, and then to be eligible for admissions at a four-year college, you also need to make sure you're meeting these requirements with grades of C or higher. So all of the courses must earn grades of C or higher, and I'm losing my train of thought here. If they failed or got a D or an F, they could remediate that class. So all is not lost. If they got a D in a semester of English, then they would take a class over summer school or a class after school to make up that grade. Especially sometimes that happens for our students that maybe take on a little bit more than they could manage with AP courses. Hey, unfortunately you got a D. Okay, well you can improve your grade or get the credit through summer school or ESS. So here is the list of the buyer courses that meet these requirements, and this is on the website. Counselors, when they've gone over balloting, are sharing this as well. And there's an online link at the bottom here that shows the list that's like official on the UC site. So you can always look at that online too. But we try to keep this updated. They are changing. There's been a lot more added in the G elective. The one that usually students get confused on is foreign language. So to be four-year eligible, they do need to take 2 years of the same language during high school. And they can meet that requirement through community college or MJC. So that would be another option if they're not able to take it during their high school, their daily schedule. So for students who are, doing really well or considering athletics in college at a D1 or D2 level, usually they would know this. There would be coaches looking at them, and they would be kind of planning towards that path. They will want to register with NCAA to make sure they get cleared through that. And there are some different requirements. So it's very few students that end up needing to be cleared through this, the NCAA, but there are some. Or if you're just interested to see what those requirements are, you're welcome to check that out. Okay, so now you have a sense of what those options are. So we talked about the 2-year college, the 4-year college, the requirements. And so when I talked about A through G, that is only if you're planning to apply directly to a 4-year college. Now, my philosophy is that your student wants to have options. And so you can always prepare for the 4-year college and meet those A through Gs and do the best that you possibly can academically. And if you decide that you want to start at a community college where you don't need those requirements, well, that's great. You're more prepared, and now you have both options in front of you. And so I've seen a lot of my students want to apply to the 4-year college, see what the outcomes are, and then see what type of financial aid offers they have, and then to consider that at the same time considering if they would like to go to MJC instead. And some do decide, hey, you know what, I don't want to be in that much debt. I didn't qualify for what I hope to qualify for, so I'm going to start at MJC. And that's great. At least you have that option. What I hate to see happen is students kind of not really think about it freshman year, and then suddenly it's junior or senior year, they haven't met those requirements, and now they're limited. They're very limited on what they're able to do. So the more options, the better. By senior year, this is the time that students will apply for financial aid. So with the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application, so you would do either or, you don't do both. It depends on your citizenship status. And yeah, so you would figure it out. You can figure it out on the website, which one you would complete. And it opens up in October of senior year, and it has to be completed by March 2nd. So the sooner it gets completed, the better. And then that's when students find out, I applied to this college, this is what my financial aid offer was if you get accepted. So each college will send them a financial aid statement based on once they get accepted. And so that includes, the Pell Grant, so federal grant. Cal Grant is if they're attending in California and it's through the state. And then work study and student loans. And so, broadly speaking, those are the types of financial aid that's available to students once they complete the FAFSA. This also would include scholarships. So scholarships that universities offer would also be included here. Now, scholarships, that's nice. That's another story. So sometimes the university offers them through their admissions process and financial aid package. So you could qualify for some that way. And students can also definitely start applying or taking a look as soon as they get to high school. Most of them don't open up until they're seniors, but there are others. So on my website, I have the link there, but I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation. I'll link you to my website that also has the link to the scholarship bulletin that gets updated monthly. And so students can start kind of filling out profiles or seeing if there's scholarships that apply to them, as soon as now. But the big time that they're going to be applying is that second semester of senior year. Definitely beware of scams. I have had students pay for applications or apps or help or certain things out there that, in my opinion, you don't need to be paying for. So most of this is free information that you can access for free. And so you're asking for money, you shouldn't have to pay for the money to get the money. So if it looks you're uncertain, I'm happy to look things over. I've seen quite a few of those. Not always, I don't always know, but I've seen quite a few of those offers that are kind of scammy. Wow, I went through that so fast. I keep staring at the clock, making sure I'm on time here. But I do send out info to to students in their Schoology page. So if your student's not a buyer student yet, they will have a Schoology account as soon as they get here, and there's a course within there that will correspond to their grade level. So all freshmen they would be a part of, and so they can check that. I tell students check that often because we post opportunities that are available to them and different things that come our way that we share with students, updates about college workshops, college visits. So that's another thing. We have colleges that come visit buyer that want to connect with students. So that's an opportunity. And then now there's so much online. There's so many virtual workshops and different things. So I'll post those opportunities, scholarships that come up. I'll post those on Schoology. I do have a Remind app, and that is really for juniors and seniors right now because that's kind of the big time that things come their way. And then my website, which I'm going to show you right now, and that's a great resource. I try to keep it up to date, but a great resource for students. And then if they want to come see me, I'm in the Career Center, and they can drop in at lunch or after school any day of the week, and they can also email with questions or for an appointment. So I know that was a ton of information. Are there any questions out there? I don't see any in the chat.